Greetings and salutations, one and all. Welcome to a brand new week right here on the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. This night we do a thing we call Community and Finance. How you doing? I want to say big ups to each and everyone locked in right now, those on TuneIn Radio, the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Across the pond, One Harmony Radio. Top of the morning to you guys over there in the UK. King Genius, Queen Genius, big ups to you. Big ups to those who are locked in from WGLRO, home of the Donny Walker Morning Show, taking you from the sheets to the streets on the People Station. Linking with everybody from Detroit to Denmark and everywhere in between. Big ups to you. Those on PEMGTV.com and of course right here at the home of the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew, kevinstew.com. Glad to have you. Couldn't do it without you. You have my word. I wouldn't even try. Kicking it off with a young lady. Goes by the name Jessa Lee. The future of soca music right here. Daughter of Leon Caldero. The track is called SOCA. You know what that is, right? Yeah, soca. Music, it just makes me feel so free. When I touch down, I want to be in everything with all made friends and they made family. Yeah, I wanna get the songs, I love the vibes. The music on me so high. Carnival is part of me. I wanna jump, I wanna wave, I want to run my belly. I'm hungry for more. It's soca I love, yeah. I wanna jump, I wanna wave, I want to run my belly. I'm hungry for more. It's soca I love. Won't be spelling S-O-C-A, soca, boy, you're S-O-C-A. Won't be spelling soca, S-O-C-A, soca, boy, you're S-O-C-A. Won't be spelling soca. I'm in love with the music, yeah. I just can't get enough for the joy that I find. I don't want to lose it, no. So leave me, just let me go. When I touch down, I want to be in everything with all made friends and they made family, yeah. I wanna get the songs, I love the vibes. The music on me so high. Carnival is part of me. I wanna jump, I wanna wave, I want to run my belly. I'm hungry for more. It's soca I love, yeah. I wanna jump, I wanna wave, I want to run my belly. I'm hungry for more. It's soca I love. Won't be spelling S-O-C-A, soca, boy, you're S-O-C-A. Won't be spelling soca, S-O-C-A, soca, boy, you're S-O-C-A. Won't be spelling soca. When I touch,
Want to say thanks to Pulse Media Group for sponsoring this segment of the show.
made friend and they made family.
When being in the moment is priceless, you want to give them a call. PulseEMG.com is a website that gets you in touch.
Part of me. I wanna jump, I wanna wave, I want to run my belly. I'm hungry for more. It's soca I love, yeah. I wanna
You
jump
can also call them at 754-999-6020.
more. It's
Pulse Media Group can do everything that you see right here on kevinstew.com. They can create you the site.
soca,
They can host your site.
belly. I'm hungry,
They can provide you with streaming services.
I love, yeah. I wanna jump,
Just link them, find out what they can do for you and how they can help you out.
hungry for more. It's soca I love.
Tell them you heard about them on the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew.
O-C-A, soca, boy, you're S-O-C-A. Won't be spelling soca, S-O-C-A, soca, boy, you're S-O-C-A. Won't be spelling soca.
Thank you, Jessa Lee. The track is called Soca. S-O-C-A. Yeah, and now I am a spelling bee contender. Well, maybe not so much. But we are looking at the young people tonight. And for the past week, I've been talking, I started talking a little bit about stuff relating to incarceration back in November when I got my first look at the Rodney Reed case. But, well, actually, it started before that when I spoke to Richard Miles back in July for the first time. When I spoke to Richard Miles. And though some of you might remember that Richard Miles is the founder of the foundation out of Texas, Houston, Texas, called Miles of Freedom. And he was wrongfully incarcerated. And when he got out, he decided to help young people who are individuals who are transitioning out of the prison system and reintegrating to society, to help them to transition. And he created an organization to do that. And he was recognized at the end of the year as a hero by CNN. So he was in the top 10 of CNN's heroes. He didn't win the top spot, but he was in the top 10. And even that in and of itself is quite an accomplishment. So yeah, my look at the whole prison system and things happening and relating to it started back then. I want to say big ups to Marlon jumping into the stew pot. And I invite you all to come and join him. Marlon is a host of Real Rockers. Real Rockers happens every Monday and Wednesday prior to the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew on multiple platforms. Look him up on social media. It's Real ROCKAZ. And connect with Marlon. You get quite a show. When I tell you a reggae music, a music edutainer. He's quite the edutainer extraordinaire. So you get entertained and you get educated. And the majority of it has to do with music. And the majority of the music that he touches on is reggae music, but not only reggae music. Because I wasn't even aware that it's 83 Roberta Flack today. Wow, that's a good innings. So, but I learned that from Marlon tonight. Anyway, enough about Marlon. If you want to know more about him, I suggest you get in touch and ask him. He'd love to talk to you. Find him on social media. His name is Marlon Burrell. You look him up on my friends list. All right, cool. All right, so we're talking tonight about the youth in the prison system. And oftentimes you think prison, you think just hardened criminal men. Not very often we think about the women, and probably less often we think about the children who have been incarcerated for whatever reason. On any given day, over 48,000 youth in the United States are confined in facilities away from home as a result of juvenile justice or criminal justice involvement. Most are held in restrictive correctional style facilities, and thousands, yes, thousands, are held without even having had a trial. But even these high figures represent astonishing progress. You hear figures like that and you think progress? Well, since 2000, the number of youth in confinement has actually fallen by 60%. And that's a trend that shows no sign of slowing down. What explains these remarkable changes? One would wonder. How are the juvenile justice and adult criminal justice systems different? And how are they similar? And probably most importantly, Can those working to reduce the number of adults behind bars learn any lessons from the progress made in reducing youth confinement? Excellent questions. Prisonpolicy.org is where I am pulling from tonight to help present present this show, and I thank them over there at prisonpolicy.org. Now, beginning with a snapshot of how many justice involved youth are confined, where they're held, under what conditions, and for what offenses, we'll be able to take a look at these questions. A starting point for people new to the issue to consider the ways that the problems of the criminal justice system are mirrored in the juvenile system. Racial disparities, punitive conditions, pre-trial detention, and overcriminalization are areas to consider, while acknowledging the philosophical, cultural, and procedural differences between the adult and juvenile justice systems. This report highlights these issues as areas ripe for reform for youth as well as adults. Now, generally speaking, state juvenile justice systems handle cases involving defendants under the age of 18. This, however, is not a hard and fast rule because every state makes exceptions for younger people to be prosecuted as adults in some situations or for certain offenses. Of the 43,000 youth in juvenile facilities, more than 2/3, 69%, are 16 or older. Troublingly, more than 500 confined children are no more than 12 years old. Black and Indian youth are overrepresented in juvenile facilities, while the Caucasian youth are underrepresented. And these racial disparities are particularly pronounced among both black boys and black girls. And while American Indian girls make up a small part of the confined population, they are extremely overrepresented relative to their share of the total youth population. While 14% of all youth under 18 in the US are black, 42% of boys and 35% of girls in the juvenile facilities are black. And even excluding youth held in Indian country facilities, American Indians make up 3% of girls and 1.5% of boys in juvenile facilities, despite comprising less than 1% of all youth nationally. Racial disparities are also evident in decisions to transfer youth from juvenile to adult court. In 2017, black youth made up 35% of delinquency cases, but over half, 54%, of youth judicially transferred from juvenile court to adult court. Meanwhile, white youth accounted for 44% of all delinquency cases, but made up only 31% of judicial transfers to adult court. And although the total number of youth judicially transferred in 2017 was less than half of what it was in 2005, the racial disproportionality among these transfers has actually increased over time. Let me say that again. The racial disproportionality in these transfers have increased over time. In 2017, it was half of what it was in 2005, the transfers. Reports also show that in California, prosecutors send Hispanic youth to adult court via direct file at 3.4 times the rate of white youth. And the American Indian youth are 1.8 times more likely than white youth to receive an adult prison sentence. Now, if everybody wasn't aware of this before, the majority of you are aware of it now. And these are some of the things that we need to pay attention to. Because if it is happening at the youth level, what do you think is going to happen at the adult level? And a lot of these cases are transfers from youth to adult. So there is no getting out and wiping the slate clean and starting over again for a number of these young people. They're going out of juvenile court in our juvenile systems into adult correctional systems. But when you consider that, it makes you want to remove that word correctional. Because there is too much wrong with the system for it to be correctional. The system itself needs correcting. It's not helping. It's supposed to be helping the people who are going through it to either change their ways or recognize. It's supposed to bring some sort of change, some sort of reform. But it only makes matters worse. So, what kind of correction is being done in these correctional facilities? Justice-involved youth are held in a number of different types of facilities. Some facilities look a lot like prisons. Some are actually prisons. And others offer youth more freedom and services. For many youth, residential placement in juvenile facilities is virtually indistinguishable from incarceration. And the residential placement is what it is called, not necessarily what it is. It's just a nice way to put it. Most youth in juvenile facilities experience distinctly carceral conditions in facilities that are locked, for one, because 92% of youth in juvenile facilities are in locked facilities. According to a 2018 report, 52% of long-term secure facilities, 44% of detention centers, and 43% of reception diagnostic centers also use mechanical restraints like handcuffs, leg cuffs, restraining chairs, straitjackets, etc. 40% of long-term secure facilities and detention centers isolate youth in locked rooms for hours or more. They are large. 81% are held in facilities with more than 21 residents, which is how they term the inmates. Over half, 51%, are in facilities with more than 51 residents. More than 10% are held in facilities that hold more than 200 youth. And long term, two-thirds, 66% of youth are held for longer than a month. About a quarter, 24%, are held over 6 months. Almost 4,000 youth, 8%, are held for over a year. 2 out of every 3 confined youth are held in the most restrictive facilities. In the juvenile justice system's versions of jails and prisons are in actual adults' jails and prisons. 4,535 youth, confined youth, nearly 1 in 10, are incarcerated in adult jails and prisons where they face greater safety risks and fewer age-appropriate services are available to them. At least another 28,190 are held in 3 types of juvenile facilities that are best described as correctional facilities. 1, detention centers. 2, long-term secure facilities. And 3, reception or diagnostic centers. 99.7% of all youth in these 3 types of correctional facilities are restricted by locked doors, gates, or fences, rather than staff secured, and 60% are in large facilities designed for more than 50 youth. So that staff secured facility that would have that personal connection with the youth, no, not there. The largest share of confined youth are held in detention centers. These are the functional equivalents of jails in the adult criminal justice system. And like jails, they are typically operated by local authorities and are used for the temporary restrictive custody of defendants awaiting a hearing or disposition, sentencing. Over 60% of youth in detention centers fall into those 2 categories. But how many of the 17,000 children and teenagers in juvenile detention centers should really be there? And according to federal guidance, the purpose of juvenile detention centers is to confine only those youth who are serious, violent, or chronic offenders, pending legal action. Based on these criteria, it is not considered appropriate for status offenders and youth that commit technical violations of probation. Yet almost 4,000 youth are held in detention centers for these same low-level offenses. And I dare say, even more so if they are people of color. It's not said, that's not said in the text. But based on the statistics given earlier, that goes to show. Nearly 2,000 more have been sentenced to serve time in these facilities for other offenses. Even though detention centers offer fewer programs and services than other facilities. In fact, national leaders in juvenile justice support the prohibition of juvenile detention centers as a dispositional option. The most common placement for committed, sentenced youth is in long-term secure facilities, where the conditions of confinement invite comparisons to prisons, often called training schools, quote unquote, training schools. These are typically the largest and oldest facilities, sometimes holding hundreds of youth behind razor wire fences where they may be subjected to pepper spray, mechanical restraints, and solitary confinement. Now, if that doesn't sound like prison, I don't know what does. The third correctional style facility type, reception or diagnostic centers, are often located adjacent to long term facilities. And here, staff evaluate youth committed by the courts and assign them to correctional facilities. Like detention centers, these are meant to be transitional placements, yet, over half of the youth they hold are there longer than 90 days. More than 1 in 7 youth in these quote unquote temporary facilities is held there for over a year. Outside of these correctional style facilities, another 15,400 youth are in more residential style facilities than are typically that are typically less restrictive, but vary tremendously, ranging from secure military style boot camps to group homes where youth may leave to attend school or go to work. Most of these youth, 78%, are still in locked facilities rather than staff secured, and conditions in these types of facilities are reportedly worse than prisons. Almost 9 out of 10 youth in these more residential quote unquote facilities are in residential treatment facilities or group homes. Less frequently, youth are held in ranch or wilderness camps, shelters, or boot camps. Well, I guess those other facilities would require individuals to have a more direct connection with these youth. But isn't that what the whole program is supposed to be about? Or do I have it wrong? Maybe I just have it wrong. I don't know. We're going to take a quick little break, and when we come back, we talk some more. I invite you guys to share with us, though. 773-789-STEW is the number that gets you in touch. You can call, you can text, and of course, you can jump into the stew pot where the water is always bubbling. It is where we keep the interaction going. Others call it a chat room. We're fancy over here on kevinstew.com. We call it the stew pot. Come on in, bring some friends with you. Let's have some conversation. Yeah? It's community and finance. We're looking at juvenile incarceration. I'm going to take a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more. We look at the facility types and recognize that some of them are actually worse than others. But this is what we're subjecting the future of the United States to. Because, like it or not, the youth are the future. So if you're treating them like criminals, where does the country go? We'll be back in just a few moments.
Media Group, innovative streaming and recording, has done it again. A new way to get your business in full view of your neighborhood consumer through AdShare TV. It's available in your neighborhood today. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. Become a host today and place a TV monitor in a strategic location so it's easy to see. Get a 1-minute video ad or longer that plays anywhere in our network. Can't be a host? No problem. For a few dollars, we'll run your 30-second video ad. A host can run announcement specials like buy one get one free or discount ads. Let's turn your flyers into a 30-second video with music or a voiceover, or let us create and run your video ad with a spokesperson. Take advantage of our early enrollment discount. Join us today. Your ad will be seen at least 30 times per day in your AdShare TV neighborhood. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. AdShare TV, part of Pulsing Media Group.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school,
In math,
I learned that I'm ugly
I
and
learned
useless.
that I'm trash.
And in gym,
In biology,
I learned that I'm
I
pathetic
learned that I'm fat
and a
and
joke.
stupid.
In history,
Today in
I learned that
school,
I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends. In English, I learned that I make people sick.
And in
And
gym,
at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell.
and a joke.
In chemistry, I learned that no one
In
likes me.
biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid.
In English,
And in
I
math,
learned that I make people
I
sick.
learned that I'm trash.
The only thing I didn't learn in school today
The only thing I didn't learn today
The only thing I didn't learn,
It's why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
The award-winning Palace Peace and Love Academic Scholarship is appealing for your support to help educate one student at a time in Jamaica and the Caribbean.
Palace awarded 492 scholarships and several computers to university and high school students in Jamaica and the Caribbean over the past 7 years, valued at approximately 33 million Jamaican dollars, $250,000 US.
Importantly, our university graduates to date include 15 medical doctors, 10 lawyers, 6 engineers, and 15 fine arts students. Our goal is to award at least 105 scholarships in 2018.
Please partner with us to make this a reality for those well-deserving, hard-working students by making a tax-deductible donation online at www.palace1.org
Or send a check to Palace, P.O. Box 5461, Alpharetta, Georgia 30023 USA, or telephone 770-744-2154.
Palace, preserving young minds for posterity.
Matthew 28:19 says, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations." With this in mind, and encouragement received during a South Florida media conference, The Church Links was birthed. The Church Links is an interdenominational worship service portal for churches, providing the tools to spread the word through technology in a cost-effective way. The Church Links, www.dahchurchlinx.com. Your links to worship and praise.
Hey yo, this is Caraman to let you know that right about now you are logged on to DJ Kevin Stew on the night shift. Don't move.
was a warning to let them know. What you reap is what you sow. Stash the secret safe and sound. Cash the peace and police them know. Nash the teeth and away and go. No streets are paved with gold. 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 See them now before they fall.
This is the sound of Jimmy Lyons working out with Carpet Face. Track called Before the Fall. I want to say thanks to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands for sponsoring this segment of the show. Althea is a light and massage therapist operating out of Broad County, North Miami-Dade and South Palm Beach counties. Let's give her a call, 954-655-9000. She comes to you, brings her table and oils. If you have your own oils, she'll work with you. Just talk to her, make your arrangements. If you want to email her, email at thealater@att.net. Just mention the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew, and we'll keep the connection going, yeah? Thank you, Althea. Had to call an Althea last week. I slept bad.
See them rising from the fall.
Almost instantaneously, I got relief.
See them rising from the fall. Rising from it all.
773-789-STEW gets you in touch. 773-789-7839. Those of you overseas that can't text or call, you can use Skype. Kevin.stew is my Skype handle. And of course, kevinstew.com. Jump in the stew pot. All us call it a chat room. We're fancy over here. We call it the stew pot. So, there are some types of facilities where a child is confined that it can affect their health, their safety, access to services, and outcomes upon re-entry. Adult prisons and jails are unquestionably the worst places for youth. For those of you just tuning in, we're looking at juvenile incarceration and various aspects of it. The demographic of those incarcerated and the types of facilities that they're in. These facilities are not designed to provide age-appropriate services for children and teens. And according to the Campaign for Youth Justice, youth in adult facilities may be placed in solitary confinement to comply with the PREA safety standard of sight and sound separation from incarcerated adults. Youth in adult facilities are also 5 times more likely to commit suicide than those in juvenile facilities. And how many of those cases do we actually hear about? Correctional style juvenile detention centers are long-term secure youth prisons and are often very harmful environments. In the survey of youth in residential placement, more youth in detention and corrections programs reported sexual victimization, fear of attack, solitary confinement, strip searches, use of restraints, unnecessary use of force, and poor relations with staff. Correctional style facilities also tend to be larger, and youth in larger facilities with more than 25 beds report higher rates of sexual victimization. And we wonder why our youth are so aggressive. Youth in detention centers, in particular, report receiving the fewest education services, such as special education, GED preparation, and job training. These youth are also most likely to report difficulty sleeping because of light, indicating that, like many adult facilities, the lights are left on even at night. For a youth population that typically come with a history of trauma and victimization, confinement under any conditions lead to worse outcomes. But the punitive correctional style facilities are especially dehumanizing. And again, I ask the question, where is the correction in these correctional facilities? The correction is needed in the facility itself, not in those who are housed in these facilities. Blessings to you and greetings. To be sure, many justice-involved youth are found guilty of serious offenses and could conceivably pose a risk in the community. But pre-trial detention is surprisingly common. Judges choose to detain youth in over a quarter of delinquency cases, around about 26% of them, resulting in a disturbing number of youth in juvenile facilities who are not even serving a sentence. So, you condition a child to be incarcerated. What do you think is going to happen later on in life? I don't know how many times I can ask that question. More than 9,500 youth in juvenile facilities, or 1 in 5, have not even been found guilty of or are delinquent and are locked up before a hearing. So they haven't even gone to trial. They're waiting. Another 6,100 are detained awaiting disposition or placement. Most detained youth are held in detention centers, but nearly 1,000 are locked in long-term secure facilities. Essentially, they're in prison without even having been committed. They haven't been sentenced. And of those, less than half are accused of violent offenses. So why are they there? What is the business of incarceration? Maybe that is something I really need to take a look into. And then we talk about that so we can have a better understanding of what is going on with our people in this country. And when I say our people, I mean our adults and our children, because they're both going through this. even if pre-trial, if pre-trial detention might be justified in some serious cases, over 3,200 youth are detained for technical violations of probation or parole, or for status offenses, which are behaviors that are not law violations for adults. Again, why are they being detained? And even more so, where are the adults in their lives? Why you feel it necessary to detain these young people? Don't they have adults in their lives? Don't they have guardians and parents? Even okay, Wusa. Once again, mirroring the adults' criminal justice system. Youth pre-trial detention is marred by racial disparity. Less than 21% of white youth with delinquency cases are detained, compared to 32% of Hispanic youth, 30% of black youth, 26% of American Indian youth, and 25% of Asian, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander youth. Time held pre-trial isolates youth from their families and communities and exposes them to the risk of victimization while being detained. Yet, in 2017, over 40% of detained youth had been held for longer than 30 days, and nearly 500 had already been detained for over a year. For what purpose? A comment in the stew pot. It's a business. People building prisons are making lots of money. These same people have registered lobbyists and they pay into political parties. It's all about money being made per bed filled in prison. So apparently I really need to get deeper into this business of incarceration. Maybe we really need to talk about that aspect of it so we can definitely have a better understanding. Because I don't get it. Youth that are transferred to the adult system can be subject to pre-trial detention if their family or friends cannot afford bail. As a result, they may be jailed in adult facilities for weeks or months without even being convicted. So let's look at this a little bit. We have young people that are parts of families that are struggling to make ends meet as it is. And for whatever reason, a number of them just being present in a space end up being incarcerated. So we'd probably end up being told that they're not incarcerated, they're just being held for questioning, for trial, for hearing, for whatever, but they're being detained. Incarcerated in my book. These same young people that are a part of these families that cannot afford to hire these high-profile lawyers that say the right words because they go to the same golf club or are part of the same country club. These families can't afford the bail. So these young people, these children, are going to have to stay locked up, and sometimes in adult facilities. For what? To scare them straight? Okay, so let's apply that logic a little bit. You're going to scare them straight so that they wouldn't do something to end up in this position. And in the process of doing that, traumatizing them so much that they would rather commit suicide. When you finish traumatizing them and you haven't attended to the trauma that they have experienced, now they have PTSD. Now you're putting them on some other medication that may cause some other side effects that will put them in right back in a situation where they'd probably end up back in a facility, a correctional, quote unquote, correctional facility. Because now they're on some drugs that have some weird side effects, and because they have a record of whatever it was that they were accused of, they're labeled. And with this label comes a stigma. And with this stigma, now, case closed. Because of prior history. They're now a threat to society. And what we have discovered as we have been learning more and more about these incarceration cases is a lot of, especially non-whites, are held in detention centers, in correctional facilities, based on the theory that they are predisposed to criminal behavior. Now, when you have the minority, the quote-unquote minority, making up the majority in correctional facilities, that math just doesn't add up. Because looking at the law of numbers, is that to say that it is the majority of people that commit crimes are those who are not white? Because the racial disparity exists. And it is quite prominent in these facilities. So, what's the deal? 773-789-STEW gets you in touch. 773-789-7839. If you're overseas and you want to share directly, you can call on Skype. Kevin.stew, or just jump onto kevinstew.com, jump into the stew pot and share your comments there. It's a judgment-free zone, so please, I want to get your feedback. You don't have to change your name if you don't want to. You can remain anonymous. I'm fine with it. Unless you want me to say who you are, I won't mention your name anyway, if you do. But come on. And General Joe Public, you and I, parents of law-abiding citizens, we're just supposed to bite. I heard of a story recently where this young lady was incarcerated for 26 years. Had nothing, she didn't even have knowledge of the crime. 26 years incarcerated. And she was released on time served. They didn't even admit that she was wrongfully incarcerated, because here's the situation that she ended up in. She couldn't argue being wrongfully incarcerated because she was released on time served. And unless you are incarcerated, you cannot argue wrongful incarceration. And I'm like, what? Wait, hold on. So what happened to the fact that they were arguing wrongful incarceration prior to her getting out? That isn't that on the books? Is that just goes away? Young black woman. And these are the things that gets swept under the rug. Thank goodness for social media. Now a lot of these things are coming out. See, social media has its purposes. But all of these things start with our children. And you'd think it is the other way around, that the children are seeing what the adults are doing and then they're doing it too. The children are being groomed to become criminals. If you're going to constantly be putting them in facilities like these correctional facilities, then that is what they're probably going to end up, or where they're going to probably end up going. If you don't have that personal connection with these young people, helping to guide them, the only thing that they're becoming familiar with is aggression and abuse, then they're going to be hardened. And when someone comes along with kind words that want to try and condition, to steer them differently, then that will be met with a lot of resistance, because now the trust is gone. I could be talking out of the side of my mouth because I don't know anything. I could be wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Somebody, anybody. But too many times we have heard the stories, and they all seem to go along the same way. When you see people serving 40 years for crimes that they don't commit, what? These things are ridiculous. They seem impossible. But time and time again, especially in the US, they show where what is considered to be impossible is quite possible. So maybe it's true. Nothing is impossible. Because, especially in the US, they've proven the impossible to be possible over and over again. We're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll, I kind of have to say. When we come back, we talk some more. Because there's more to talk about. These are real issues. And it's really happening in our communities. So, if we're not talking about them amongst ourselves, who are we talking about them to? Or with? And if we're not having these conversations, or these true conversations, that's a problem. Because I know I'm not conning anybody with addressing this subject. So, are we determined to raise some awareness? Or do we just want to sit around like, oh, woe is me, and they're doing it again? Yeah, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. We don't have to meet aggression with aggression. Sometimes it's what is called for. But at the basis of it all, the main thing that we need to know, the main thing that we need to have is knowledge. And we don't seem to have all the information, because if we had more information, all of this couldn't be going on for all this time. Why is it going on? What are we not doing right? Is it a problem that is happening in our homes? Why these children are getting into trouble and then ending up in these correctional facilities? Or is it something else? Let's find out. Let's ask the questions. Let's start the dialogue. We'll be right back after these messages.
Come on, smile. Oh, honey, he's still not smiling.
Maybe he's not a smiler.
Yeah, maybe he's just not a happy baby.
Maybe he's just being a boy.
Or maybe he's teething.
Maybe it's just a phase.
Maybe he has autism, and we can definitely do something to help.
Maybe is all you need to find out more about autism. No big, joyful smiles by 6 months is one early sign. Learn the others at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Matthew 28:19 says, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations." With this in mind and encouragement received during a South Florida media conference, The Church Links was birthed. The Church Links is an interdenominational worship service portal for churches, providing the tools to spread the word through technology in a cost-effective way. The Church Links, www.dahchurchlinx.com. Your links to worship and praise. When being in the moment is priceless, consider the ability to share that moment. If you can video it, you can broadcast it. And Pulse E-Media Group has the tools you need. Weddings, birthdays, funerals, graduations, church services, parties, seminars, you name it. Pulse E-Media Group can provide you with a secure medium controlled by you to broadcast your event. Contact us at www.pulsemediagroup.com for more information. Pulse E-Media Group, when being in the moment is priceless.
It's been a long time coming. Are you ever gonna change? Are you ever gonna to take advice for how I'm feeling? It's been a long time running, and I know you wanna stay. So I think that it is time we live like we used to. Right all around the city singing with the top down. Let's take it back to when we were younger. It's been a long time coming, so put on a happy face. Grab my hand so we can let all of our troubles out. There's no care tonight. Take me for a ride. Even when it's dark, never will lie. Even when it's dark and you lose your mind. Oh, right in the moment when your head is confused. Oh, I will stay in the madness with you. Oh, now you're so crazy. Oh, I'm crazy too. Right in the moment.
Want to welcome you back to the show. This is the sound of Royce. It's called Madness.
Baby, don't you worry, 'cause you know I understand what it's like to be chewed up and fit out in the cold world. Baby, there's no hurry, as long as you take my hand. We can dance and I won't be the one to let you go. There's no care tonight. Take me for a ride. Even when it's dark, never will lie. Even when it's dark and you lose your mind. Oh,
want to say thanks to Reggae Global Entertainment for sponsoring this segment of the show. Thanks to Althea for her previous segment. Reggae Global takes care of your tour management, your bookings, your legal contracts, your publishing, your copyrights, your trademarks, your business registration, and so much more. Just give them a call. 954-998-8034. Tell them you heard about them on the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew. Yeah, I'll stay in the madness with you. The madness is happening all around us, so I can't seem to escape it. Right. Getting right back into this. A comment right here in the stew pot. It's business more than a social issue. This incarceration of young people and adults. Incarceration on a whole is a business. I know, for example, the security company called Wackenhut makes millions in building and servicing prisons worldwide. Now, when you have companies like this one, and I remember the first time coming across this organization, this company, they were doing security in the Mutual Life building that housed the U.S. consulate. No, I didn't really think of them like that, and I didn't realize how global they were until I saw where their name was involved or associated with security services all over the globe. Now, maybe a shameless plug because there's no publicity such as bad publicity. But if they're making millions from building and servicing prisons worldwide, then there is a business for that. So I'm not really mad at them for doing what they do to be profitable, to be a profitable business. My issue is that there's a need for them to have this profitable business. Because, as I was taught in simple principles of business, need or supply and demand are crucial to the cycle of economics. And apparently, there's a demand. They have provided for that demand, or have been providers meeting the needs for that demand. So there's an economy there for their business. Far from locking up youth only as a last resort, the juvenile justice system confines large numbers of children and teenagers for the lowest level offenses. For nearly 1 in 5 youth in juvenile facilities, the most serious charge leveled against them is a technical violation or a status offense. 15% for technical violations, 4% for status offenses. These are behaviors that would not warrant confinement except for their status as probationers or as minors. These are youth who are locked up for not reporting to their probation officers, for failing to complete community service or follow through with referrals, or for truancy, running away, violating curfew, or being otherwise ungovernable, quote unquote. Such minor offenses can result in long stays or placement in the most restrictive environments. Almost half of youths held for status offenses are there for over 90 days, and almost a quarter are held in restrictive correctional style types or juvenile facilities. Can you think of the type of background that the majority of these children come from? Would you fashion a guess? Because me, as I'm presenting this, as I've been reading it, all I can think of is the child of that family that has difficulties making ends meet. And it's not to say that children from these families are destined to a life of crime. When you check out who the heads of these criminal organizations are and the type of lives that they live and some of the families that they come from, you can only ask, why are they involved in criminal activities? But it is the foot soldiers that get caught up. It is those at the bottom of the totem pole. Because crap rolls downhill, right? So they're at the end of the stick. And they get it. The fact that nearly 50,000 youth are confined today, often for low-level offenses or before they've had a hearing, signals that reforms are badly needed in juvenile justice systems. And I don't know how much justice is really involved in these systems. Again, it's questionable. You know, when you're thinking about the correctional facilities, you still have to ask, correction for whom? Confinement remains a punishing and often traumatizing experience for youth who typically already have a history of trauma and victimization. Without discounting the many ongoing problems that we've been looking at in this report, there is another more positive story about juvenile justice reform. And we look for positive. We hope for a positive. We pray for positive. Because we need positive. We definitely need positive. Now, policymakers focused on the juvenile justice system have responded far more rationally to the falling crime rate and to the mounting evidence of what works, compared to those working on the adult criminal justice system. At a time when a 50% reduction in the adult prison and jail population over 10 or 15 years still seems racial to many, the juvenile system has already cut the number of confined youth by 60% since 2000 and continues to decarcerate at a rate of roughly 5% year over year. The number of youth in adult prisons and jails has also dropped by over 60% since 2000. And over the same period, nearly 1,300 juvenile facilities have closed, including over 2/3 of the largest facilities. From an adult criminal justice reform perspective, this is enviable progress. I don't know if this has anything to do with the fact that you remember when children were put in timeout and they had to go into a corner and face the corner. That was the kind of stuff that I grew up with. But that was deemed to be non-progressive. That was deemed to be aggressive and harsh treatment. So things started to change. And the introduction of positive reinforcement came around, which is kind of questionable, but that's for another show. The progress toward decarceration in the juvenile system cannot be attributed to any single change. Rather, historical factors, ongoing research, and dogged advocacy efforts, these all played important roles. Juvenile crime rates dropped. Some of the most egregious conditions of confinement were widely publicized, jolting policymakers into action. Adolescent brain research made it impossible to deem youth fully culpable and incapable of change. Evidence piled up showing that confinement leads to worse outcomes. Much of the progress can be attributed to the work of advocates who pushed for federal legislation to protect confined youth, and for state laws that raised the age of juvenile court jurisdiction, discouraged transfers to adult courts, and allowed for more individualized sentencing. Many of these strategies have parallels in the criminal justice reform movement, such as repealing mandatory minimum sentences, while others, like raise the age, don't really apply. But juvenile justice reform advocates have also had success with strategies in both to both improve conditions and reduce the use of confinement that the broader criminal justice reform movement can adopt. An inexhaustive list of successful reform strategies that have been used to decarcerate the juvenile justice system and that could be adopted to and applied to the adult criminal justice system includes closing and repurposing prisons and detention centers and redirecting resources to serve people in their communities. Missouri closed its correctional style training schools, quote unquote training schools, 30 years ago, replacing them with a well-staffed network of smaller dorm-like treatment centers focused on rehabilitative programming. And this has become known as the Missouri model of juvenile justice reform. And while there have been no comparable statewide initiatives to close adult prisons, the Vera Institute of Justice and the Prison Law Office have taken officials from various states to visit prisons in Northern Europe to see for themselves how a far more humane correctional system can enhance rehabilitation efforts and reduce the harms of incarceration. I remember seeing some time ago a video from a correctional facility in one of those Northern European countries. And I was like, this has to be made up. This has to be staged. This cannot be an actual prison, quote unquote, prison. But when you look at the crime rate in that country, and I cannot for the life of me remember where it was. But the rates of crime was significantly less than that of here in the US, which has this archaic prison system. So the efforts include developing programs to safely serve people charged with violent offenses in their homes and communities. While efforts to reduce adult prison and jail populations generally exclude people charged with violent offenses, juvenile justice experts have pushed for no reject policies, recognizing that home and community-based interventions are more effective than incarceration for youth charged with all kinds of offenses. The field has developed evidence-based programs that reduce violence and delinquent, criminal, and aggressive behavior among youth with elevated risk levels without confinement. Criminal justice reform advocates have begun to recognize the need for new approaches to violence and can look to these programs as models for supportive non-carceral alternatives. Changing laws to make certain offenses non-jailable is another thing that is being done. In the juvenile justice context, states like Utah and Massachusetts have removed status offenses from juvenile court jurisdiction. And federal legislation mandates the deinstitutionalization of status offenders. But several states have passed laws to counteract that exception. A number of states, including California, Hawaii, Kentucky, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, and Texas, have also ended commitment to secure juvenile facilities for low-level or non-violent offenses. Hopefully, that will change what happens with the adults. And they're not being replaced with other forms of negatively influencing the individual that is charged with these offenses. Issuing civil court citations in lieu of arrest to divert people away from court intervention is another thing. Delaware's juvenile civil citation program and Florida's judicial circuit civil citation and similar pre-arrest diversion. These programs are examples of two statewide efforts to offer youth accused of misdemeanors alternative community-based sanctions, such as family counseling and treatment for substance abuse or mental health, and restorative measures such as community service, apology letters, community impact statements, restitution, etc. While cite and release programs are common in the adult criminal justice system, they generally serve to prevent jail detention, not prosecution. These youth programs, however, allow youth to avoid prosecution and its consequences altogether. From November 2018 to October 2019, nearly 10,000 or 62% of eligible youth in Florida avoided formal prosecution through pre-arrest diversion. Now, that is something positive. Capping sentences to reduce time under correctional supervision is another thing that is done. Kentucky, Utah, and Tennessee have set limits on the amount of time youth can be in out of home placement, on probation, and or under court supervision. And Georgia has reduced maximum sentences to certain felonies from 5 years to 18 months. Such limits are rare in the adult system, where, for example, intermediate sentences are the norm and long probation sentences often lead to further supervision or incarceration. But Florida's 2-year cap on probation sentences stands out as one example of this strategy applied in the adult system. Kudos to Florida. And that's the Florida Statute S 948.04. Shifting funding to develop and expand community-based alternatives to incarceration. Now, this takes away from the whole business of incarceration. Just last year, Tennessee committed, being 2018, Tennessee committed $4.5 million per year to expand community-based services and to provide juvenile courts with more treatment options. Georgia, which created a grant program in 2013 for counties that reduce the number of committed youth, has shifted $30 million to community-based alternatives and closed several juvenile facilities. This justice reinvestment model has been implemented in many states in their adult systems. But these examples show the value in focusing on front-end reforms to reduce overall incarceration. Recognizing and addressing the impact of trauma on justice-involved populations is also taken into consideration. An estimated 90% of justice-involved youth have experienced serious trauma in their lifetime. Based on the conditions that we've learned that they've been exposed to, we can see why. Understanding the impact of trauma on cognitive development and behavior, policymakers and practitioners have increasingly called for trauma-informed care, not punishment, for justice-involved youth. Yet, although incarcerated adults also typically have a history of traumatic victimization, recognition of past trauma has yet to inform sentencing and treatment for most justice-involved adults. Making policymakers and the public more aware of the link between victimization and justice system involvement could help shift political winds to take a less punitive and more supportive approach. So, what do we take from all this? This big picture, this grand report, not only reveals ways in which the juvenile justice system must improve, but also offers lessons from progress that has already been made. States have reduced the number of youth in confinement by more than half without seeing an increase in crime. Positive. A victory that should embolden policymakers to reduce incarceration further for youth and adults alike. By our most conservative estimates, states could release at least 13,500 more youth without great risk to public safety. These include almost 1,700 youth held for status offenses, 1,800 held for drug offenses other than trafficking, over 3,300 held for public order offenses not involving weapons, and 6,700 held for technical violations. States should also look more closely at youth detained pre-trial. Beyond the youth detained for those low-level offenses categories, over 7,000 others are held before they've been found guilty or delinquent. Many, if not all, of these youth would be better served in the community. Beyond releasing and resentencing youth, states should remove all youth from adult jails and prisons. Close large juvenile facilities and invest in non-residential community-based programs. Legislators should continue to update laws to reflect our current understanding of brain development and criminal behavior over the life course, such as raising the age of juvenile court jurisdiction and ending the prosecution of youth as adults. But lawmakers who support reducing incarceration among youth should also consider supporting radical reforms to the adult criminal justice system. Like youth confinement, adult incarceration inflicts lasting physical, mental, and economic harm on individuals and families. And falling rates of both youth crime and youth incarceration provide evidence that bold reforms, such as making more offenses non-jailable and expanding community-based alternatives to incarceration, could be applied to the adult system while maintaining public safety. Like the criminal justice and juvenile justice systems themselves, the efforts to reverse mass incarceration for adults and to deinstitutionalize justice-involved youth have remained curiously distinct. But the two systems have more problems and potentially more solutions. And there's a lot more of those that are in common than one may actually think. The momentum of decarceration in the juvenile justice system is something that must continue. And it should inspire bolder reforms in the criminal justice system as well. Now, this is not something that should just stop once the show ends. Because it's not about this show. It's about a change in our community. It's about something that is needed. We need to get back to families being built on core values. We need to get back to communities helping in the raising of children. I grew up in a time when it was considered to be capital punishment in the home with spankings and beatings with belts. Or switches, not light switches, pick a switch from the tree kind of a thing. But there was also the village raising the child, in that there was help from the neighbors. And what I really believe that contributed to was respect for elders across the board. When the core family value is removed from a community, I believe that is just a recipe for disaster. And in my opinion, that is the basis for which youth criminality ended up on the rise, being young criminals. And as a result, you have adult criminals. And with a lot of it being transfers from juvenile justice system to adult correctional systems, and with a lot of them not being very different. I guess they didn't want the transition to be that traumatic. But that's something that cannot continue. And the more we talk about it, the more we realize what is like exactly what is happening with our children, with our parents, with our brothers, with our sisters. And unfortunately, it happens more for individuals of color. In other words, it happens more for those who are not white. And the statistics prove it. I'm not making it up, and I'm not saying it because I fall in that category. I'm saying it because it's the facts. And collectively, we need to do something to effect change if we want change. Instead of sitting around and saying, boy, that needs to change. Okay, so it needs to change. What are you doing about it? Where are you having that discussion to influence that change? Who are you writing? Which petition are you signing? Who are you voting for? Yeah. That's all a part of it too. So, I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you how to do it. And I can't tell you when to do it. I can tell you that something needs to be done.
Change has come to America.
Everyone's crying out for change like it's a sin. Needless to say, change starts from within. Each one, teach one, run, tell a friend. That's the only way to get the cycle to end. The chain is as strong as its weakest link. Third eye blind, blink, open your mind, think. Knowledge is power, and you hold the key. Don't you want to be free? How can we fail if we never begin? Let's rewind and come again. Let's take it back to where it all began. Mama Africa, 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 the motherland. Kings and queens with royal blood. Now, we're just diamonds lost in the mud. In a system they made, designed to keep us confused, afraid, and enslaved.
Change has come to America.
It's a circus, manipulated for their purpose. A mandate designed by hate, set up to separate. We're caught in a trap like bait. Since 1812, it's true. Ask Jerry, you never knew? It's all trumped up, rigged. We're swirling in a whirlwind, spinning like a gig. Political arena, this shit is big.
Change has come to America.
Fight and conquer, while their pockets get stronger. The question we should ponder, how much longer? They're just in it for gain, while we suffer hurt and shame. Continually taking the blame. Up against the wall, divided, we shall fall.
Change has come to America.
They say we have nothing to lose. It's full time we choose. Love or hate, it's not too late. Stronger together, let's keep the faith.
I want to say thanks to GMAT Music Solutions for sponsoring this segment of the show. It's that segment we call Musical Therapy. And kicking it off in Musical Therapy, we're listening to Sharon Corinthian.
JC made it clear.
About change.
444. Whether you shine cutlery or carry a rake, light skin, dark skin, real brother or fake, the fork that divides us is the wrong road to take. My people, this bad pie we bake, making so many mistakes, our lives are at stake. It's time we awake. Slumber nor sleep, we're running out of time. Only we ourselves can free our minds. Change is a must, but it's up to all of us. We're getting nowhere on this bus. Look behind the past game. Do we now look for what's to blame? Doesn't take a genius to see the results will be the same. Now is not the time to unwind. Come, stand up, draw the line. There's strength in numbers, undivided. We must all stand hand in hand, united. Remember,
change has come to America.
No matter our favorite roots, the haves and the have-nots, it's the truth. We're still all considered black. That's a cold, hard fact. Don't need Johnny Cochran to defend that. Where we always seem to go wrong, we just can't seem to all get along. We're still following their blueprints.
Change has come to America.
Even as they line us up for fingerprints. My people, are you colorblind? Can't see? In the dark? Left behind? Too busy holding on to the mist, the lies. Allowing them to break our bonds, our ties. His story, that's what we've been fed. It's time to stop eating that daily bread. Let it go, it's dead. Some are privileged, so they're always right. 3 strikes, I'm out, on lockdown, good night. It's a constant battle, a daily fight. Out on the street, a brother's lucky if he makes it home every night. The system is dread, earth I run red. Time for we grab the snake and chop off its head. We must cut it out from the root. Stand up, speak truth, or there'll be no future for our youth. Hands up, don't shoot.
The lyrical stylings of Sharon Curran. It's called Change. I want to thank Eric of Eric and the Jazzers for popping in. Good to see you, Eric. Jazz group out of South Florida.
Change has come to America.
Everyone's crying out for change. What a sin. Needless to say, change starts from within. That's the only way to win. Open your mind and let the process begin.
Thanks to GMAT Music Solutions for sponsoring this segment. GMAT Music Solutions provides stage and light production services along with sound production services, musical equipment, audio engineers, DJs, bands, singers, musicians. Just give them a call, 754-307-GMAC. That's 754-307-4622. Tell them you heard about them right here on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. New music coming from Ed Robinson.
Who's done it? Yeah.
A track called The More We Are Together.
They say it takes love to make the world go round. Even though we know it takes hate to make it all tumble down. Yeah. We know that what goes up don't always come back down. No, but when it goes around, we know it's have to come back around. So if you're digging one pit, my brother, better you just dig two. And if you're setting one trap, my sister, set another one for you. Don't you know things are always never what they seem? No, my reality could sometimes be your dream. But the more we are together, the happier we shall be. The more we stand together, the stronger we shall be. Yes, the more we are together, the happier we shall be.
And DJ Kevin Stew, pull up that song, I like it, but
whoa, whoa, well now, yes. Who's done it?
I can do it once more. Listen to the words. Ed Robinson. Adding one more to the catalog.
They say it takes love to make the world go round. Even though we know it takes hate to make it all tumble down. Yeah. We know that what goes up it have to come back around. So if you're digging one pit, my brother, better you just dig two. And if you're setting one trap, my sister, set another one for you. Don't you know things are always never what they seem? No, my reality could sometimes be your dream. The more we are together, the happier we shall be. The more we stand together, the stronger we shall be. Yes, the more we are together, the happier we shall be. The more we stand together, the stronger we shall be. Yeah. Instead of building walls, let's build bridges instead. Instead of fighting wars, let peace go ahead. Remember, today is for you, but tomorrow's for me. The light has been shining for you. Don't be so blind to see. Yeah, things are always never what they seem. No, my reality could sometimes be your dream. The more we are together, the happier we shall be. The more we stand together, the stronger we shall be. Yes, the more we are together, the happier we shall be. The more we stand together, the stronger we shall be. This is a warning. Whatever goes around will come back around. This is a warning. Don't let your walls come tumbling down. This is a warning. 7 times rise and 7 times fall. This is a warning. Rise up your mind, let it stand up tall. Yes, the more we are together, the happier we shall be. The more we stand together, the stronger we shall be.
Morning rise and open eye, our time to realize we see the changing times.
This is Christina Alicia.
That's life.
Jah is for us.
See the light. Fool us once, but never twice. Now our people shall arise. Now we stand up for our rights. If Jah is for us, who can be against us? If Jah is for us, the wicked can never ever prosper. If Jah is for us, who can be against us? If Jah is for us, the wicked can never ever prosper. Once you know the truth of who you are, what you're worth, you rise beyond the lies they planted from your birth. Revelation cannot hide, and the truth can never die. Judge our children now arise. We stand up for our rights. If Jah is for us, who can be against us? If Jah is for us, the wicked can never ever prosper. If Jah is for us, who can be against us? If Jah is for us, the wicked can never ever prosper. If Jah is for us, children never beg for bread. Children never beg for bread. Children never beg for bread. Children never beg for bread.
5 minutes before I get out of here.
Told me you needed more walks, more talks, more.
This is the sound of Miss Joanna Marie.
I wanna be close to you.
Her rendition of Maybe We Can Try Again.
This is Joanna Marie, and it's all about DJ Kevin Stew on the night shift. You feel for some stew? Check out Kevin Stew. I want your body next to mine, baby. Yeah.
Thank you, Joanna Marie.
I've been staring at your photograph, wondering where you're at today. I've been hanging by the telephone, hoping that you'll call home and stay. You told me you needed more walks, more talks, more feeling close to me. I wanna be close to you. I didn't know you needed some roses, some romance, a little candlelight, slow dance. That's not how it's been. Maybe we can try again. Try, yeah. Maybe we can try again. I remember all the days gone by, and I'm wondering what I couldn't see. Yeah, baby. I could search the whole world over and never find what you have always given me. I told you I needed more time, more space, more freedom, free to do what you wanna do. I gave you no roses, no romance, no candlelight, no slow dance. That's just how it's been. Maybe we can try again. Try, yeah. Maybe we can try again. Try. Oh, maybe we can try again.
I want to thank you, each and everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your contributions. Remember to join me same time, same place right here, 10 p.m. Eastern time. KevinStew.com tomorrow night for Healthy Love.
Close to you, I'll give you some roses, lot of romance, a little candlelight, slow dance.
And we're gonna bounce on out of here tonight with thank you, Joanna Marie. We're gonna bounce on out of here with the new dynamic group out of South Florida, Sensational Dynamic Sound. Their rendition of A Woman in Love. My name is DJ Kevin Stew and I'm bouncing out of here. So good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world from right here in South Florida. Keep the conversation, keep the conversation going. Good night.
It's the same old story. You care, but you don't love me. Though I know it still hurts to hear the truth. Don't expect me to forget you. I love you, and I can't hold back the love I want to give to you.
priceless? Consider the ability to share that moment. If you can video it, you can broadcast it. And Pulse E-Media Group has the tools you need. Weddings, birthdays, funerals, graduations, church services, parties, seminars, you name it. Pulse E-Media Group can provide you with a secure medium controlled by you to broadcast your event. Contact us at www.pulseemediagroup.com for more information. Pulse E-Media Group, when being in the moment is priceless.